In today's video, I want to share with you what I would do if I were to do CTA in 2022. So I did CTA many years ago, and when I did it, I did perform well. I was happy with my marks, but I was very inefficient in my CTA year. And you know, the good thing for me was that I was a full-time student. I had a lot of support, but I think there's so many things that I could have done differently and really improved my performance in terms of my marks. And I'm going to share that with you. So if I was doing CTA this year, these are the 3 things that would be in the back of my mind, like constantly. Let's get started. The first one is the 70-30 rule. Now, this is basically the whole summary of what I would focus on. The 70-30 rule, that's what I've given it the name, is really to say spend at a minimum 70% of your time on questions, and at a maximum 30% of your time on writing notes, making summaries, and highlighting your textbooks and your legislation, etc. Okay, so maximum 30% on reading and minimum 70% on questions. That's what I would do. When I was in CTA, our lecturers actually recommended that. In fact, I think they had it as 75% and 25%, right? 75-25. And I remember hearing it, and they explained why, which makes sense, and I agree with them. Is that most of the work that you do in CTA, you've already been exposed to at undergrad level. There's very little additional work that you do in CTA. There's some, but you know, you can actually cope without having to spend all of your time reading, writing, and summarizing. So trust yourself and rely on the fact that you have been exposed to this before. But when our lecturer said this to me, I just felt very uncomfortable. I still defaulted to spending so much time, so much unnecessary time reading my standards, highlighting, making beautiful summaries, because you know that's what we do. And yeah, I didn't really know what value that added to my studies, but I do know why I did it. One, it was my comfort zone, making summaries, reading. That's the kind of studying I'd been doing all these years, and it had worked. I was comfortable with it, and I didn't want to let go of it, right? 2, it was a lot easier than trying questions, because anytime I would try do a question, especially management, accounting, or auditing, I would do questions and I had no clue what was going on. It would be extremely demotivating, and I would probably stop studying, or you know, just like it would just give me a flat. Does that make sense? Like it would just, yeah, not work for me. Okay, I don't know, but you get it, right? It was extremely demotivating for me. So doing the summaries, reading, writing just made me feel better, and I stuck to it. And I still did questions, obviously, but not as much as I could have. In fact, I could probably say my time was spent the other way around. 30% was spent on questions and 70%, and that's a lot, guys. That's really bad. I mean, it's not good at all. So I did that, but point is, what would I do now? I would do it the other way around. And when I talk about doing questions, right, you know, there's so many ways you could do questions. You could get a question paper, and then you look at the question paper, and then you read it, and then you make some notes on the question paper, and then say, okay, I get it, okay, and then attempt a basic answer, not too much effort, and then go to the memo to see what the solution is supposed to look like. You can do some questions like that, but when I'm talking about doing questions, I mean sitting down under exam conditions and really writing out, reading the questions, timing yourself, reading the questions, writing out the answers in full, going to the legislation and the standards to find the solutions and writing it out. And then when the time is up, getting the memo, and then marking yourself with the red pen. That's what I mean by doing questions. So I'm not talking about the OER method where you just say, oh yeah, I knew that was the answer. No, I mean really sitting down and doing questions. And by doing that, you are writing doing questions, right? So when you do questions, when you do it in this manner, when you do questions in this manner, there's so much benefit that you get out of it that completely outweighs reading the standard. One, by reading the question under exam conditions and attempting to answer that question, you are getting yourself exam fit. You know, it's like running a marathon. If you're preparing to run a marathon, you can read about running marathons. You can read about the diet. You can even start eating healthy to run that marathon. Read about the diet and know everything about having the right gear. But if you do not get on the road and start running, you will not be prepared for that marathon. So by sitting down and writing doing a question, you are getting yourself exam fit, okay? And the first time you sit down, especially in the beginning of the year, having come from undergrad, you might write your first test on a topic that you're doing, do a question on a topic that you're doing, and you just fail dismally. You know, when you mark yourself, you maybe get 15%, and that is extremely discouraging. But that's okay. This is what I want you to be aware of. When you do questions and you get 10%, 15%, whatever it is okay. I'm not too worried about that, in fact. I want to know what happens after you do the question. So you write the question under exam conditions, you mark the question, and then you review and analyze where you went wrong. And that's where, oh my goodness, that's where so much learning takes place. You're analyzing yourself, you're checking to see, okay, fine, where did they get this? Why did they say this? Why did they give this answer? You go back to your standard. You're looking at the paragraphs that they refer to. You may have seen those paragraphs before, but now you're reading them in a different context. You can relate with them a bit better, and they're starting to make more sense to you. So by doing questions, it's not like you're avoiding the standards and legislation completely or your textbooks. You're just giving yourself an opportunity to engage with the literature, the theory that we give you. You're giving yourself to engage with it at the level that we require you to engage with it. And that is to be able to analyze, to be able to evaluate, to be able to criticize. If you just sit and you read the standard and highlight and memorize and all that stuff, and then think you're going to be exam fit, that's impossible. Right? Because all you're able to do is just to give us what the standard says. You'll really, really struggle in the test room, in the exam room, to actually give judgment on certain things because you're not used to doing it. So do questions, spend 70% of your time doing questions. And then the second thing I would do is very practical. When I was doing CTA, I think I really liked files, and exam pads. It was my thing, and because I wasn't in high school, I didn't need to use books. But oh my gosh, these books are such a treasure. They're strong, they're sturdy. I would definitely buy a book for each subject like this. This is a 288 one. This is a 3-quire book. Maybe you can buy a 2-quire, whatever you need. But I would buy this, and I would literally, this would be my subject book. Any summaries that I do make, those few that I do make, I would include them in here, and I would date them. And then very importantly, the questions that I do, I would do these questions in here. Even mock tests that I do to prepare myself, I would do them in this book, and I would mark the work in this book. I would highlight my work in this book. This would be a reflection of what's going on in my mind. I would not recommend using an exam pad. I think if you have an exam pad, use it for just rough notes that you know you're going to throw away, because the thing with an exam pad is that you have to file those papers. Then you end up misfiling those papers. You never know where anything is, right? When you're going to go consult with your lecturer, you're all over the place. So I would really recommend a book where the pages cannot come out. If you make a mistake, you just cross it out. Definitely, this is a cheap, easy one, and it's a winner, all right? And then the third thing I would do, if I was doing CTA again, I would use the lost marks analysis. Now, when I was in CTA, I didn't know anything about this. I got introduced to this concept when I was writing my board exam, the one that I failed, when I was writing for the second time, and I went for support classes and they spoke about a lost marks analysis. So I've prepared one that I think would be applicable for a CTA student, and I mean, you can change it however you want. You can really play around with it. I created a video where I spoke about using the lost marks analysis, and I've just created the template for you, so you don't have to start from scratch. And it just splits it looks at what marks did you lose, right? But what we do is we group them, and this is now all about exam technique. You want to get the easy marks. You're not looking at, oh, I lost marks in inventory, or I lost marks in revenue, or deferred tax. No, you're looking at, did I lose easy marks? Because those are the ones that you can get in the exam, right? So I've split it. The PDF one has color, okay? But for you guys, I've split it. I've got here, it would be green, right? And these are the easy marks. So when you're marking yourself and you're checking which marks you lost, you would look at all of these ones that are under green. And if you've lost any marks there, you fix those problems immediately for the next test and for all of your subjects, because these are easy marks that you're using. Then you've got your yellow or orange marks, which are I call them the okay marks. Those are like, okay, you could have gotten away with a bit of effort, right? So you check these out and you start working on them, because you can still get them. And then the last marks would be the no clue marks, your red marks, where you have no clue what went wrong. And usually that's probably where you have knowledge gaps, like massive knowledge gaps, right? So I've created this. I've linked it to my Google Drive, so you can just check the link under the video below. Use it, don't use it. If it works for you, give it a try. If it doesn't, it's fine. If you want to edit it, I've placed a Word document for you to play around with it. So please, and let me know, give me feedback if you think I should make some changes. But I would definitely use this for what? I would use this for my tests that I write, the school test, the university test. I would use this and actually analyze those tests to see, okay, now this is a script that's been marked by a lecturer, okay, and they're saying this is my performance. I'm a 40% student, or I'm a 30% or 60%, and I'd look at the marks that I lost and I'd start going back to see, why did I lose those marks? And really what you want to do is you want to get rid of these ones. You don't want to be losing easy marks. So if you see yourself losing easy marks in a particular subject, deal with it immediately. And then also remember, think about whether you're repeating that mistake in all the other subjects. Those are my 3 non-negotiables. 70-30 rule. I would use a choir book instead of exam pad, and I would do the lost marks analysis on all of my tests. For me, it's really about being strategic in my study time and understanding that time is limited. So I want to just really, anytime I sit down and study, I want to attack and get the best out of that study session. That's my recommendation, guys. Yeah, I hope it helps. See what works for you, use what works for you, do not use what doesn't work for you. Thank you for watching my video. I will see you guys next week.